a 7-hour time difference, 2:30 in the morning. I'm sorry, Larry?
2:30 in the morning, Craig. Yes. 2:30 in the morning, you're right, Lou. And I thought I heard the explosions about 20 minutes ago. I jumped right out of bed, put my clothes on, and came straight to the Bureau here in Jerusalem. We're trying to get in contact with our crew in Tel Aviv. They called once, but now we're not hearing from them. The civil defense is alerting everyone to put their gas mask on and go into a sealed room. As I said, right now, we are not obeying that order. There's a sealed room 1 floor below us, and we're going to stay with you as long as we possibly can.
Larry, I know that you have a great deal on your mind, but let me ask you at this point, as you look out on the city, I can hear sirens in the background. Is that correct?
We have a microphone out the window. We have one of our mics hanging out the window. I do not hear those sirens, but I've got an IFB in my ear and all the noise in the room in my other ear, so I do not hear those sirens.
Larry, if you would, describe to us what you do see out that window.
I'm sorry, Luke, could you repeat that, please?
Describe, can you see well enough to see? Is there traffic on the streets?
No, there was some cars on the road when I was driving in. They were not driving quickly or with any panic. I stopped by a couple at traffic lights. I looked at them. They looked at me. No panic in their eyes at all. This is in Jerusalem, though, mind you, and there have been no explosions reported in Jerusalem. Only right now, 2 explosions have been reported in Tel Aviv. I cannot confirm that independently. We can turn the camera.
Put on your mask on, and I'm going to open the window.
I want to be able to talk, so he'll be able to hear.
Larry, I want, Larry.
Yeah.
Larry, if I may say, opening the window, should that...
I can't hear. Yes.
Larry, I'd just like to strongly urge you, and I'm passing on the instructions of Bob Fernand, our senior executive producer. Do not, don't open the window if you would, please.
Go ahead, go ahead.
I can't hear him. I need to...
I'll tell you now.
Can you hear me?
Okay.
Yes, we do hear you. Just Larry has to put on his mask.
Yes, please pass along instructions from our senior producer, Bob Fernand, not to open that window, please.
Would you give me a hand tightening my strap, please?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we do hear it right. Yes,
we very much appreciate the risk that you're putting yourselves at to bring us this report, but please do not open the window and further expose yourself to...
Okay, I understand you. We've not opened the window. We are requested not to open the windows in the place of the effort. Here, Larry, back to you.
We are now watching Larry register, our Jerusalem bureau chief, returning an IFB to his ear. What you were watching, you just heard him talking about an IFB, which is simply an earpiece that connects him by line to me, talking here in New York, and to our headquarters in Atlanta.
Larry's going to put your mask.
And as you can see, they're putting on their gas masks at the instruction of the...
Yeah, just 1 second, please. Pick up the phone, please. Pick up the phone.
Yeah. And I...
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I do hear you right.
Okay. Is there any... Have you... Now, Larry had just said that he thought he had heard an explosion. Did you hear one?
I would not be able to confirm this. Here is Larry back to he's going to talk to you.
The call for Palestinians in Kalkilia who have fired 4 to 5 missiles.
Say again, Larry.
Okay. Okay.
Look.
Which part do I have to go to?
Okay.
910 our phone? 910 our...
We are watching Larry register, our Jerusalem bureau chief, who has been, along with the other citizens of Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, been told to put on their gas masks. There have been explosions confirmed. No one knows the sources of those, but it is feared that they are indeed Scud missiles launched from Iraq. We are now going to return to Wolf Blitzer, who has an update for us from the Pentagon. Wolf.
Yes, that they anticipate an Israeli retaliation. In fact, an Israeli retaliation, if in fact this has occurred, and we have confirmed that it has occurred, Pentagon officials say the Iraqis can anticipate a massive Israeli reaction from the Air Force, from Israel's Air Force, which has been bracing all day for this type of an attack. The sense one gets here at the Pentagon from brief discussions within the past few minutes is that these missiles were from some of the mobile Scud ground-to-ground ballistic missile sites that were not knocked out in the initial U.S. and Allied bombing attacks. The fixed sites were supposedly destroyed. There has been concern throughout the day here at the Pentagon, certainly in Israel, that some of those mobile missiles, perhaps concealed from some of the high-flying U.S. reconnaissance photography, could manage to get a missile or two off. The exact number of missiles that landed in Israel is believed under 5. It's either 3 or 5. And we do know, we have confirmed that there were at least 2 loud explosions in the Tel Aviv area. The other 3 are presumably have landed elsewhere in Israel. And as we know at this point, U.S. does not know the extent of damage, if any, with these missiles that just landed in Israel. Yes, Lou?
Well, thank you. We have an Israeli spokesman on the telephone, and we're going to go to him to see if we can get some further information, and Wolf will get back to you. Yes, are you there? Okay, are you there? We apparently don't have a clear line at this point. We will try to go back for that update. Zbigniew Brzezinski is in our Washington, D.C. studios. Mr. Brzezinski, can you hear me? This is Lou Dobbs in New York. Mr. Brzezinski? Mr. Brzezinski, this is Lou Dobbs in New York. Did you just hear the report from Wolf Blitzer at the Pentagon suggesting that as many as 5, that's an unconfirmed number, but that as many as 5 Scud missiles may have been launched against Israel?
Yes, I have, and it's clearly part of the Iraqi strategy to engage Israel in hostilities so as to fracture that coalition which exists with the Arab countries against Iraq.
We also heard Wolf Blitzer suggest in his report that it would not be unexpected that Israel respond against Iraq. What would be, in your judgment, the impact? And as I'm asking you this question, we're watching, again, our Jerusalem Bureau, that is Larry Register on the right, and I cannot identify the person on the left, who are affixing their gas mask. Okay, and Mr. Brzezinski, in the midst of that long-winded question, I've just been told we now do have on the telephone the IDF spokesman in Tel Aviv. Please go ahead. What is the situation there in Tel Aviv?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Hello?
Yes, this is Lou Dobbs in New York. Can you tell us what your situation is? Are the missile attacks confirmed?
For some reason. I cannot hear you. I'll only say we've just initiated an announcement saying that due to a missile attack on the center of Israel, there's an alert, and all the people of Israel are asked to wear immediately their masks and to get into closed, sealed rooms. We do not know exactly what is happening, and I suggest you call us later on when we'll have some more information, okay?
Thank you very much. And obviously we're having communication problems, understandably so, but he is confirming that a missile attack has occurred again, that combining with the confirmation by Wolf Blitzer at the Pentagon. Zbigniew Brzezinski, we're trying to come back to you as we are watching these pictures from our Jerusalem Bureau. Are you still with me?
Yes, I'm with you.
I just had begun, and I apologize for a long-winded question, but what will be the impact as a result of these missile launches against Israel, in your judgment?
Well, I believe, and I would certainly hope so, that there must have been consultations on such a contingency between the U.S. and Israeli governments, and I hope that there is an understanding that unless the American response is ineffective, the Israelis will be restrained and will not react immediately, because that would play into Saddam Hussein's hands. He obviously is doing this to precipitate Israeli entry into the war in order to break
so you do expect
the coalition.
Restraint. Mr. Brzezinski, we're going to go back to our Jerusalem Bureau. Those pictures that you see, Larry Register, our bureau chief in Jerusalem, can you hear me?
Okay, yes, Lou, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Okay.
And I am sitting here trying to watch this monitor through the glares of these studio lights. Could you describe to us what you can see?
Alec, Lou Dobbs is talking to me. Please stop talking to me. I'm trying to listen to Lou, Alec. Please stop talking to me. Go ahead, Lou.
Again, we can see the pictures. I am somewhat limited here because there's so much glare on my monitor. Could you please describe what we are seeing as you've turned your cameras toward the streets of Jerusalem.
Yes, yes, he's looking down, the camera's looking down at the streets of Jerusalem. This is Jaffa Road that you're looking at, Jaffa Road. Our address here is 206 Jaffa Road. We are about 1 or 2 blocks from the main bus station. We're looking down at Jaffa Road. We've seen 2 or 3 cars go by. What I can tell you is this so far. There have been at least, I don't have confirmed reports of this personally, but this is what I'm hearing from my informed sources, at least 2 explosions in Tel Aviv. Palestinian sources are telling us there were 5 explosions between Qalqilia and Tel Aviv. The first one happened at 2:10 our time, which would have been at about 7:10 Eastern time, I believe. I hope I'm doing right with my mathematics here.
You're doing fine.
So that's what we hear. The first explosion happened at 2:10 our time in Tel Aviv, which would have been 7:10 Eastern time. So far in Jerusalem, I have heard 3 air raid sirens, and as I was getting out of bed to the sirens, I thought I detected a small explosion from far away. I did not feel the ground shake or anything like that, but I could hear it with my ears. I immediately put my clothes on, went down and got in my car to drive to the Bureau to meet up with my fellow CNN workers here. I have with me now Trey Haney. Andre Brown is taking these pictures. Izzy Lindbergh is helping us gather information. The pictures you're looking at, I'm going to look at the monitor here. As I said, our Jaffa Road, you do see there goes a car going by. The people hear the sirens. They have been advised by the Civil Defense, or Haga here, to put your gas mask on, go into a sealed room until further notice. At this moment, we have our mask on, but we're not going to the sealed room. It's 1 floor below us. We can get there in probably 20 seconds or 30 seconds if need be. We have chemical suits. We have atropine. We can take care of ourselves. Here comes one of our colleagues into our building. The building we are in houses journalists. It's Jerusalem Capitol Studios, ABC, CBS, CNN. The Canadians are here, and the French, and the Europeans. Many European networks are here. It's not as busy as it is on a normal day. I guess many people took the advice of Haga or the Civil Defense and stayed home and stayed in the sealed room. But right now in Jerusalem, I have heard no explosions in Jerusalem. I did hear something go over our head, which we thought may have been a jet. I don't know. I could not see through these windows. I'm going to pull this. This is not a seal I'm taking off. This is just a filter for a live shot, which you can't see, so I can see better out these windows. Okay. Looking down, I see the lit live shot location downstairs. And again, the road, Jaffa Road, is very empty. If you look straight out across, if Andre can hear me, Andre, can you hear me? You can see the Knesset looking straight out across, a shot of the Knesset.
Larry,
That's where the Israeli parliament meets. Yes, Lou?
if I may interrupt your reporting for just a moment, we're going to turn now to Tel Aviv, also under a civil defense alert for missile attack. And there we're going to try to talk with the security chief at the Hilton Hotel in Tel Aviv. Are you there? Yes. Are you there? This is...
What's happening? You don't put a mask?
Yep. This is Lou Dimes in New York. Can you hear me? Is this the Hilton Hotel? Excuse me, the Sheraton Hotel? Okay. As you might expect, we're going to be bouncing around on these communications. That we have them at all, to my mind, is a tremendous credit to our engineering and production staff around the world. Sure. We're going back to Larry Register in Jerusalem. Larry, are you still able to hear me?
Yes, well, I can still hear you fine.
There have been no further, what you would say were explosions in the past 20 minutes?
No, not since I last talked to you. Nothing has changed. There's a phone call. Maybe I can get that. I might have some more information.
Okay, the pictures you're watching are of our being shot out of the windows of our Jerusalem bureau. It's CNN bureau, and we're going to stay with those, with that video and audio contact. But first, we're going to return now to Wolf Blitzer at the Pentagon, who has a further update for us. Wolf?
Yes, Lou, we're getting word here at the Pentagon that at least 2 of those Iraqi Scud missiles, believed to be Iraqi Scud missiles, have landed south of Tel Aviv in populated suburban areas. One along the Mediterranean coast in a town south of Tel Aviv called Hulon, and we're told it's in an area where there's a well-known hospital in that suburban area called the Wolfson Hospital south of Tel Aviv. No knowledge of any damage, no word yet whether it had a chemical warhead or a conventional warhead. The second missile is reported to have landed southeast of Tel Aviv in a area called Kiryat Shalem. And again, these are populated areas, suburban areas where commuters who live in the suburbs and work in Tel Aviv go, and certainly the indications from these 2 loud explosions that were heard throughout Tel Aviv but not in Jerusalem would indicate that these 2 missiles, Scud missiles, believed to have been Iraqi Scud missiles, landed in these areas near Tel Aviv. Indeed, Saddam Hussein has been promising for weeks that if there was a war, his first targets would be Israel, and these reports indicate that he has lived up to that threat. The question now is, what are the Israelis going to do? Yes, Lou?
Wolf, we're going to try to find that out. I just want to explain for our viewers who are watching pictures from our Jerusalem Bureau, listening to Wolf Blitzer at the Pentagon talk about what is happening in Tel Aviv. We have heard reports of as many as 5 missiles fired. We have confirmed now, as I understand it, Wolf, 2 of those missiles have landed south of Tel Aviv. Our correspondent in Tel Aviv, Richard Roth, is on the telephone. Richard, can you tell us, do you have any knowledge of injuries in those missile attacks?
I'm not going to be able to provide much information except what people are going through here. Right now I'm in the Hilton Hotel in a sealed room on the 6th floor with dozens of other hotel guests and journalists. We have heard several, at least I would say 10, 11 explosions. It's unclear what kind or where they might be coming from that are reverberating throughout the city. Sometime around 2:15 in the morning local time, the air raid siren went off, and this city, which had been bracing for weeks for potential trouble, raced into sealed rooms, donned gas masks. I'm sitting next to dozens of people who are wearing their black gas masks. People have been told to stay put, no smoking, and we are just listening to explosions. The rooms are sealed up. We are not able to look outside. We just keep hearing very loud explosions and booms going off. The city yesterday was deserted as everyone was inside their homes, and it appeared that some people thought that maybe the worst was over and that Saddam Hussein would not be able to fulfill his threat. Apparently that might have been wishful thinking. Lou?
Richard, thank you. We have just been informed that guests at the International Hotel in Tehran have been informed to take several Saudi Arabia to move to the bomb shelter, and we're not exactly certain of what those initial warnings mean, but we're going to turn again to Wolf Blitzer, and Wolf, hopefully you can add to this story that is breaking very quickly.
Well, clearly, Lou, missiles have landed in Israel. Scud missiles, the presumption here at the Pentagon is that these missiles were from the mobile surface-to-surface missiles, the Scud missiles that the Iraqis had claimed would go after targets in Israel as well as in eastern Saudi Arabia. And if this alert that has now been reported in Dhahran in eastern Saudi Arabia is true, there could be a missile alert at least going after some of the targets in the eastern part of Saudi Arabia. Throughout the day, officials here at the Pentagon had been telling journalists that, yes, the fixed sites were believed to have been knocked out. The fixed Scud ballistic missile sites, especially those in the western part of Iraq, dubbed by the U.S. intelligence community as H2 and H3, those were believed to have been destroyed in the initial U.S. airstrikes. But there was concern, indeed mounting concern throughout the day here at the Pentagon, that the Iraqis in the past 24 48 hours had managed to conceal some of the mobile missiles, and these are the ones that presumably have landed in Israel. We have confirmed here at CNN that 2 of those missiles have landed south of Tel Aviv in suburban areas, one in a suburban town along the Mediterranean called Hulon, another one southeast of Tel Aviv called Kiryat Shalem. No word on the extent of injuries, no word whether this was a chemical warhead or a conventional warhead. Details are still sketchy, but what is clearly obvious here at the Pentagon at this hour is that U.S. officials are bracing for some sort of Israeli response. Lou?
Well, thank you. We're going to turn quickly to Larry.